Hey everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. So, Republican lawmakers love to tout their pro life Christian beliefs, how they're now the party of the working class, apparently. Nothing could be farther from the truth, though, and their policies are where you see the proof of it. So, according to a report in the Daily Poster, Pennsylvania State Representative Seth Grove has been trying to kill paid sick leave legislation for nearly a decade. Apparently, in 2013, he began pushing for legislation to block governments from imposing paid sick leave on businesses. He, of course, frames this vile anti-worker position as pro-business, which is antithetical to this whole working class shtick that Republicans have going on. And you would think that Grove would back off now, being that we're in the midst of a global pandemic that has now taken nearly 500,000 lives just in the US. But you would be wrong. Apparently, Grove recently reintroduced his bill, and it would retroactively kill Philadelphia and Pittsburgh laws that were passed back in 2015, mandating 40 hours of paid sick leave to eligible employees. Now, that's, of course, 40 hours over the course of a year. And in fact, after the Supreme Court upheld these new laws in July of 2019, Grove was completely furious. He said, quote, "If Pittsburgh and Philly want to be San Francisco, they can just go to San Francisco." I mean, first of all, what does that mean? A city is going to pick up and move? I mean, is he talking about all the people in those cities? What is he saying? Is he actively trying to drive people out of his city, out of his state? And then his website decries labor laws as, quote, socialist policies meant to harm the free market. I just love when these guys talk about socialist policies. It's like, oh, you mean like public school, like public kindergarten through 12th grade school? You mean like the police department? Or maybe, Medicare for the elderly or Social Security? That's all socialist. Those are all socialist policies and programs. The fire department is a socialist policy. We all put money into it and it benefits everyone. See how that works? So apparently Grove believes that workers should just be forced to make a decision on whether to work through an illness, potentially infecting their coworkers, or they can choose to not pay their rent and just be evicted, or to not put food on the table for their families and allow their children to starve. I mean, that's the choice facing many of these people. But this is the party of family values, folks. This is the party of the working class. Basically, he's saying, no, if you're sick, too bad. You either go to work or you stay home and you don't get paid. I don't give a damn how sick you are. I don't care if you have broken bones. Too bad. They continue to prove that they only care about children in the womb. Once they're born, they could not care less if that child has food, shelter, and clothing. Honestly, I mean, most of these people have children that they have to take care of. Where do they think that money's going to come from? But then they'll cry and whine about other programs to help them make ends meet. They just don't want to help. Republican lawmakers pretending to espouse Christian values and believe in Christian values, that's the right's way to virtue signal. I'm a good Christian. I believe in God. God this, God that. God said, take care of the sick. God said, feed the poor, take in the stranger. Here's the deal. Their true allegiance is to their corporate donors. These people ply them with cold hard cash. And what they do, which was explained in this article, is that they get them to pass what's known as preemption laws. So these preemptive laws or preemption laws prevent local governments from enacting worker protections and other important legislation. It's not just paid sick leave, it also affects things like the minimum wage. According to the Daily Poster, only 6 states in all of the US and the District of Columbia have no preemptive laws that would prevent legislation meant to protect workers' rights. All of the others do. In all of the other states, they can pass these preemptive laws and completely screw workers over. And this is unbelievable because according to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, 25% of all workers in the private sector have absolutely zero sick leave benefits. 25%. The data also shows that the majority of that 25% are low wage earners. So they said 67% of low wage earners have no paid sick leave whatsoever, compared to 5% of the highest earners in the country. So the people who need it the most don't have it. The people who probably have no savings or very little savings have no paid sick leave. Yet the people who are making more than enough, who probably have tons of money in the bank, they're probably invested in the stock market, they probably have all kinds of assets that they could easily sell off to cover any bills that they have, the majority of them, they have paid sick leave. So what do you think these workers are going to do? These low income, low wage workers, if they start to feel sick, they start to suspect that they might have COVID, they literally can't afford to stay home. And they probably can't even afford to go to the doctor. Many of them probably don't have health care. I mean, is it really any wonder why America has had the #1 worst response to this pandemic? Even without Trump's demonstrable failures, his bungling, his deceit, our laws and our love of money and capitalism is literally killing us. And ALEC, which is a horrific organization, it's an acronym for American Legislative Exchange Council. They're one of the biggest groups working with Republican lawmakers to prevent things like paid sick leave from becoming law. Grove, this guy that I mentioned at the beginning, the lawmaker in Pennsylvania, he's actually the Pennsylvania chair for ALEC. And what this group does is they basically just write legislation for senators and for House members. And then they hand it to them, and that's what they submit. It's not like senators look at it and say, oh, well, this isn't going to work, and I'll have to make a change to this. Thank you for your proposal, but I'm going to have to make some changes. No, they literally just submit it as is, as if they wrote it. And this group and people like them and other groups like them are working for corporate donors. They're working on behalf of large multinational corporations whose only care in the world is money. Now, meanwhile, I'm going to give credit, Democrats are pushing for the opposite. In states like Florida, they're trying to roll back preemptive laws so that the local governments there can decide for themselves if workers are entitled to paid sick leave. They're also trying to reverse preemptive laws in Pennsylvania, which have apparently prevented increases in the local minimum wage. But this is not to say, and I'm not saying or suggesting that all Democrats are good faith actors. They just typically have different donors. So they block other things that would be good for everyday Americans. Their donors tend to come from the insurance, banking, or the drug industries. So that's why they're reluctant to pass things like Medicare for all. That's why they keep coming up with every excuse under the sun to not pass Medicare for all. It's a majoritarian issue. Something like 80% of the public wants Medicare for all. That includes Republicans and independents. A large share of both of those groups want Medicare for all. So if our officials aren't doing it, who are they working for? So I've said it before, I'll say it a million times more if I have to. Unless and until we get money out of politics, the majority of politicians in Washington, D.C. will not do what's right for us, for we the people. It is just not going to happen. And what is such a slap in the face is that I guarantee you that this Grove guy and others like him, like all politicians, he probably has the best paid sick leave benefits known to man. Being a congressman, he probably has the platinum standard paid sick leave, and he probably readily uses it anytime he has some hay fever or his neck is a little stiff from sleeping the wrong way. Yet, no, people who potentially have COVID and are going to come in contact with the public and their coworkers and keep this pandemic brewing, they're not allowed to take the day off because of how it affects the corporation that probably pays no taxes or very little in taxes, less than their workers. I can guarantee you that on most fronts. These people just disgust me. All for me, none for thee. That's their motto all the time. So we need changes, guys. We need progressives in the House and in the Senate because corporate Democrats are not going to cut it, and Republicans by a long shot are not going to cut it, and they're not going to make changes that help people. As always, like, share, and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Take care, and I'll talk with you soon.